on the runway behind us is Texas Raiders. She's a B-17G. She was built, was it the last day? The last day at the plant?
Last month.
Last month.
It was in the block of the last 30 flying fortresses at the Douglas plant.
So how you doing, sir?
So she's a little special. I'm Matthew McClooney with Battleship Memorial Park, and today we're just here, and this is
Kevin Michels. I'm the wing historian for the Gulf Coast Wing.
Today we're checking out this B-17G, and that was the definitive model, correct?
It was. 2/3 of all B-17s were G models.
Okay. And she looks, the paint job looks like she's in maybe European theater, early war.
European theater, 8th Air Force, and this will be prior to 1944. You've seen this, all aluminum.
Right.
January 1944 is when they get involved.
Okay. Texas Raiders, is she painted like a certain bomber, or is this a fabrication?
Okay, so she's painted to honor the 8th Air Force bombers that were in combat. We specifically chose Texas Raiders because no B-17 had ever been named that.
Okay.
We wanted to honor everyone that had served, not one particular ship and not one particular crew.
How's that look?
Makes a lot of sense.
We have
Right, so she's one of how many planes that are still flying?
4.
There's 4 still flying.
4 B-17s are still actively flying.
And I read on your site there's, what, 6 that are airworthy, but 4 flying.
6 that are airworthy in addition to the 5.
Oh, in addition?
In addition, so there are 10 that are airworthy, 4 of which are active.
Okay. Well, this is actually my first time seeing a B-17 up close. I've seen Fifi, I've seen a B-29, I've seen a Liberator, and we have a B-25 at the park. So these are the Wright Cyclone engines, right?
They are Wright Cyclone R1820, which is the number of cubic inches, so it's a big engine. Put out 1,200 horsepower each.
Just for reference, the average size of a truck engine for like a Chevrolet, 325 cubic inches, and this is how many?
1,820.
Per. So
Each cylinder has about the average displacement of a V6.
each cylinder.
Each cylinder.
Okay.
Big.
So she's not wanting for power,
Not wanting for power.
especially since obviously you guys aren't carrying bomb loads.
Not anymore.
I did see that you guys carried a skydiver.
We did. We drop on almost a regular basis now. We carry the Air Force Wings and Blue skydiving team.
Okay.
And we drop them right out of our bomb bay.
Right out of the bomb bay.
Right out of the bomb bay.
I bet that's quite the experience. Have you ever talked to the guys?
Oh yeah, no, we're good friends with them.
Okay.
So I'm part of that air show team, so I help set them up and I push them around.
So this was produced at the, which plant?
Douglas.
Douglas.
In Long Beach, California on July 12th, 1945. So after hostilities had already ceased in Europe and just prior to the ceasing of Japan, so it really wasn't needed. This aircraft was destined to go straight to the scrapyard. Clearly that's not what happened.
What happened to her? What saved her from the scrapyard?
Okay, that's great. So of those 30 that were last produced,
Right.
20 of them were picked up by the U.S. Navy.
Okay.
The Navy won with the B-17, right? Okay, we all are familiar with the kamikaze threat.
Absolutely.
Okay, and the Navy just couldn't get their hands around that. They had plenty of fighters to knock out the kamikazes, but they needed an early warning sound.
To get them in the air.
Right. So they tried the radar picket destroyers.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the destroyers got hit by those same kamikazes.
Right, right.
Destroyers are expensive.
They sure are.
Okay, so let's try the same concept, but let's try an airborne early warning system. What do we call that today?
AWACS.
We call that AWACS. The Navy invented AWACS in 1945, but they needed a platform.
So this was the platform.
This was the platform. The Navy used 20 B-17s as platforms.
Okay.
They designated them a PB-1W. Look that up on Google and see what it looked like.
Now this didn't have the traditional big radome that certainly.
Not that you see, not today's. It looked very different. It was an
Okay, so
AN APS 20 radome, and it was fixed. It was on the bottom.
It was on the bottom. Okay. This is the infancy of AWACS.
The infancy of AWACS. This is what's happening.
Okay, that's interesting because we're talking about early warning for kamikazes. Alabama, of course, ran into kamikazes more than a couple of times.
That's right.
And she had her fair share where she shot them down. Now, what's interesting is that you talk about early warning. Are you familiar with Mariana's turkey shoot?
I am.
Okay. Do you know who saw the formation for the Mariana's turkey shoot?
Who saw it?
Who picked it up first? Who
The Alabama?
It was the Alabama, USS Alabama, at the Mariana's turkey shoot. Saw at a range, I think, of about 190 miles. And Michener, who was the admiral in command, he had previously been the flag officer. He had been used the Alabama as a flagship. So he was familiar with what she had on board. And at first, he didn't believe the radar hit. He said, "You have an anomaly. You don't have that range."
Something is that big.
Yeah. Well, we were like, "We think we have a formation of bogeys," and they were like, "Oh no. You don't have that kind of range." Well, then the Iowa confirmed our radar hit at 140 miles, and at that point, with the Iowa's confirmation, that allowed Michener to say, "Okay, let's launch our planes." And so Alabama, that was Alabama's claim to fame at the Marianas Turkey Shoot. We saw it. And at the end, Admiral Lee said, in spotting in the aircraft, "Iowa, well done. Alabama, very well done."
Excellent.
So, just a little bit of our history.
That's cool. Can I drop a bomb on you?
You're in a bomber. Let's do it.
All right. So the USS Alabama is very near and dear to my heart.
Okay.
So I went to high school in Colorado.
Okay.
And one of my high school friends, his dad served on the USS Alabama.
Really?
At the age of 16.
16.
16.
Now,
So a little shout out to Ed Sellers.
now that's funny because we've actually, usually when I talk about the ship and people getting around on it, I say, "Oh, these are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids." People kind of look at me funny. 16, and it's like people were signing, either they were joining and saying they were 18, or they were, their parents would sign for them at 16. Do we have an estimation on flight hours on the airframe?
About 9,000 hours on this aircraft.
9,000. Now, what is the original intended flight hours for one of these airframes?
Well, there wasn't.
There wasn't.
This was a tool of war.
Okay.
So it was just designed to go out there, and if they got 6 months out of it,
Great.
Okay. So they didn't build them to withstand time. They built them to withstand punishment.
Right.
Now, as it turns out, that's basically the same thing. With the exception of corrosion control,
Right.
it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this aircraft has survived quite well the test of time, and we've conquered the corrosion issues.
And she looks fantastic.
A lot of time, effort, and man hours go into that.
I believe it. I mean, you guys, since I've been standing here for the past 20 minutes or so, you guys actively are polishing, you're checking, you're going over because you're pre-flight. Maybe not yet, but y'all are taking off later this
We
afternoon.
already started the pre-flight for the day.
So you've started pre-flight for the day.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
combat range.
So the combat range. So we have the token tanks.
Right.
So what does that do with our range?
Well, it varies quite a lot. You can take this plane off the runway at 65,000 pounds. Well, pound of fuel, pound of ammo, pound of bombs, all the way the same.
Right.
So you can vary that up and you're good to go. So you can pick a target that you want to hit. And put enough fuel on the plane to get you there.
Gotcha.
And load enough ammo to anticipate how much you're going to need to fight your way in and fight your way out.
Now that's an interesting thing you said. Fight your way in, fight your way out.
Right.
Now, why would they have to fight their way in? What was different about fighters early in the war?
Depending on when you fight it. There wasn't just one combat experience. People always say that the Luftwaffe fighters always came in from the front.
Sure.
They always came in from the back, and that's not true at all. It was much like a football game. In the first quarter, you got a running play that works great. Well, after the first half was over, that running play wouldn't stand a chance, right?
Right.
Air combat was the same thing. About every 3 months, it's a completely different war.
Makes a lot of sense.
Because a measure has a countermeasure, and then there's a countermeasure. So the war was constantly developing. We flew a combat box, but there were 11 different combat boxes that we flew.
I didn't know that.
We had to develop. And the Luftwaffe constantly was developing their combat tactics as well. So whatever combat tactics they had that worked, we found a countermeasure.
Okay. So what about the range on our fighters?
Range in our fighters. Initially, we used Spitfires. That was in late 42.
Right.
And they could barely get across the channel, so that's as far as the production went.
Okay.
And then we had Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts could range a little bit into France, and that was about it.
Right.
Well, about the January of 44, we had some P-51s.
Right.
And by late January 44, we had drop tanks. That was the magic number. Because with drop tanks on a P-51, you can now escort bombers all the way to any target and all the way back. So now the Luftwaffe had a significant challenge on their hands. 4 to 5 months later, we now had air superiority. And loss rate fell from 4 to 5% completion to just 1%.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's a tremendous drop.
It is. That's. It reminds me a lot of the change in the Battle of the Atlantic.
Exactly.
It went in 43, getting into 44. There was just a steep drop in how effective the U-boats were once we had the Enigma machine, thanks to the Royal Navy.
That's right. They're very similar analogy. So in 1943, a B-17 crew had to fly 25 missions, but they had only a 36% chance of making it.
Okay. Wow.
Late 1944, crews had to fly 35 missions, but they had a 70% chance.
Now I'm not in the museum field. I'm not working in the museum field because I'm good at math, but it sounds like that's better.
Much better, even though you had to fly more missions.
All right. So where can they find your schedule to schedule a flight?
Okay. If you go to b17texasraiders.org, we've got our website there, and you can find all kinds of information on this aircraft. We've got our history, all kinds of write-ups on our aircraft, and as well as our tour schedule. And if you want to sign up for a ride, there's information there too.
And obviously, you know where our YouTube page is. You're watching us, but don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell. You've seen Chip go up there and ring the ship's bell. It's a good bit of fun. We take volunteers. We have living history crew, and you can find us on Facebook, USS Alabama Battleship Memorial Park.
Yeah.
There's an SNJ taxiing. You can find us at USSAlabama.com. Find us on Facebook. Find us on YouTube. Right now, we're really trying to get the page out there. We're working back up from COVID. Things are looking good. Come see us. Come see the Texas Raiders. Come see all the CAF events that you can. This is her last mission.
Right.
Is to stand here and educate, and so that's your 35th mission.
We have a three-pronged mission in Commemorative Air Force.
Okay.
To honor, inspire, and educate.
Fantastic. I really like that.